It is always satisfying to see a corrupt cop exposed in the act. Today we'll go through cases where these tyrants were held accountable in the courtroom for their crimes.
You told me this is a court that's got nothing to do with you. Starting there, we're going to be back and you're going to be going to jail.
A courtroom often becomes the worst place for a police officer to be, as their crimes are exposed for everyone to see. Today we'll be going through these cases where corrupt and evil police officers were owned in court, starting off with this tyrant who abused his authority.
Dude, the cop comes and totally treats me like a asshole.
In February of 2020, a First Amendment auditor, Derek, was peacefully sitting and observing the court proceedings in a Williams County courtroom when a court deputy came over and removed him.
What's going on?
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
So, what's your business here today?
Oh, I'm going to look at court.
Just look at court?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, sitting in there.
Okay, well.
What are you sitting there for?
What am I sitting in there for?
That's why I'm asking.
You told me there was no court today.
This is a court that's got nothing to do with you.
Deputy Royce Crone began intimidating him without cause, treating him as if he had broken the law simply for sitting in a public courtroom.
So you're just wandering around sitting in a courtroom where you don't know anything that's going on?
Yeah, why can't you?
Huh?
What amendment is that? The Fourth Amendment?
I don't know if I'm not going to quote amendments.
So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to sit and watch.
And you're going to be civil. Because if you're not,
was I in there not being civil?
I'm just telling you what's going to happen. No, I'm telling you what's going to happen.
I'm telling you what's going to happen. I'm in there.
I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Hey,
you're going to go in there, if you're going to go in there, you're going to be quiet. Go down here. Go down here.
Let's walk around this corner. Around the corner.
I had no problem with you being in there, but if you're starting there, we're going to be back and you're going to be going to jail.
Didn't I ask you
do you understand what I said? Do you understand what I said?
I asked you.
Do you understand what I said?
I asked you if there was court today and you told me no.
This is a civil trial.
It doesn't matter what it is. I can go in there. That's why there's benches. You can go see it.
It's not your business.
The deputy has no shame whatsoever as he makes up laws on his own. His aggressive demeanor is only about to worsen as he realizes that the auditor is also well versed in the law.
You can go see it.
It's not your business.
It's public, so it is my business.
So why did you go to every office?
Why can't I?
Huh?
What's the big deal?
Why can't I?
Because people don't normally do that. They don't come in here and go to everybody's places.
You walk all over the place for no reason at all.
I'm not most people. I'm going in there,
finding that out.
and I asked you if there was court today, and you told me no.
Right, there is.
Because I like to go in, not a lot, and go watch court. So when is court session? For what?
I want to see your identification.
For what law?
I want to see your identification.
What?
I'm
For
asking
what?
you as a peace officer for some ID, so I know what I'm
For
talking.
coming and seeing?
No, because you're in my building.
My name's Derek, and this is our building.
I need your information.
It's our building.
Derek, let's not. Okay, I'm gonna security here, right? We've had security concerns in the past. Okay, that's what we have. You're right. It is public. Okay, but when you're going from room to room, that's unusual. Okay.
The corrupt officers, once again, try to use the classic officer safety excuse to deny someone exercising their constitutional right. Shockingly, the deputy had even lied earlier, claiming that court was not in session.
We're investigating a suspicious act in a government building. Okay, so if you ask for identification, you do have to provide it. Okay.
Okay, and why? I don't understand. Like I go in there and you pull me out when I'm legally okay to go in
We're
there.
checking to see what's going on. We're investigating.
I'm legally fine to go in there and
but
watch
we want
court.
to make sure
You
that
pull me out.
we're
Really?
just seeing what your intentions are and what's going on.
For a legally okay act. I don't. They're not. No, it's not suspicious.
It is to me.
Me and you don't have the same options of what's suspicious. What's suspicious to me is you pull me out of court when I'm in there
What's
watching,
suspicious to me?
not being loud. Sir, I let you talk. No, you're not going to shush me. I let you talk. I'm in there watching court, and you have me come out here so they can run my ID. I'm in court, and I'm sitting and being civil, not making any noise. And I asked you downstairs, was there court today? You told me no. And then you're like, well, it's none of your business. It's public. So it is my business. I can go in there and I can watch.
Derek wasn't going to be an easy target for sure, as he continued to grill the deputies who had violated his rights by removing him from a court without the judge ordering them to.
We have security concerns in here. People just don't walk around.
I'm not most people.
I'm talking now. Remember, it's my turn. Most people don't walk around and go to every office and checking out everything. That is not a normal thing to be done. That is suspicious to me. That's why these gentlemen are here. All right? This is a civil trial. You have no reason really to be in there. There's no reason
to be in any courtroom watching what's going on.
You're giving me an attitude whenever I ask you something. You might start something in there. I've got a full plate full of people.
I'm sitting there being civil and quiet so that your security clearance goes right out the window. I don't understand what your problem is.
You're in my building.
This is our building. This is a public building, not your building.
It's my building.
Public, it's not your building. It is not your building. So quit saying it's my building.
You're in my building.
It's not your building.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
I'm security here. It's my building.
It's not your building.
I'm responsible for this building.
Okay, and when I came in,
anybody that's suspicious.
And I'm not suspicious. You are suspicious. Treat me like a criminal when I'm not.
The situation was getting heated, and the poor auditor had every right to be frustrated, as he had been done in by these tyrants who didn't know the law.
Let's go downstairs.
Let's go public right now. All right, let's go.
All right, let's go.
10-4, thank you.
Come on, downstairs.
For what?
Huh? Sworn on instruction in this court.
Well,
This is a county building.
Okay, and it's public. We know
If
that.
you're not here for court and they don't want you here, they can do that.
If you're trespassing, they can do that. I'm not. Or I'm committing a crime. I'm not committing a crime. I like to go to court and watch.
but our building, their building, whatever. If they don't want you here, they can be like, time to go.
For if you commit, it's like trespassing. If I commit,
You don't have to commit a crime. You don't have to.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Still a county building.
So, if they want you gone, then you have to leave.
The problem is I didn't do anything.
Right.
I
But
gave you my ID and I was nice. He's more than rude, and you guys are very nice. And I just want to go in there. I want to sit and not like I was. Was I doing anything wrong? I was just sitting in there
Right.
watching. That I'm okay to do.
right.
The officers disrespected him and were straight up lying to his face. Now this happens when unchecked authority goes to their head. They think they can say anything and get away with it.
But you're at the point where, like I said, he's the head of this building, so what he says, you kind of got to do it. Okay?
So let's get your boss then. Let's get your boss then.
Let's go downstairs.
Is your boss? We're gonna go talk to your
Let's
boss.
go downstairs.
We'll go downstairs and figure it out there, okay?
Take the stairs for us.
My boss, my sergeant, is not here today. That's therefore I am in charge right now.
All right.
Okay?
So I was up there not doing anything wrong. As you know, I don't have that. If you're like, hey, you need I don't need help. They ran my stuff, nothing came back. It tells you that I'm not a criminal. I've never been to court for stuff other than watching stuff in Minot. That's why when I ask, hey, is there any court going on? You're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, let me see the building. I'm from Minot. I'm not from Williston, so let me see the building. That's what I was doing.
The deputies were now adamant about kicking him out of the building. It is bizarre how these cops still have no clue about public and private buildings and how they behave.
So if I got loud, I apologize. But we know that I can go in that courtroom, I can sit there and watch what's going on. It's public record. It's not
My concern
secretive.
is that you've gone to every
That's fine, because I'm asking
every
questions.
hallway, every office, places where I couldn't see you, and you were there
Yeah,
for a while.
and I'm asking
I don't know
questions.
what's going on.
Yeah, you're fine.
All right?
You're absolutely
I'm trying to
okay.
ask you questions. You're saying that you have no business here, you just want to sit.
Why can't I sit in the court? I'm just watching. That's all I'm doing.
When I first approached you and asked you about this, you copped an attitude with me.
No,
All right,
it's
yes,
not.
you
I
did.
kind of looked at you and didn't
No,
apologize.
you
And
copped
I
an attitude.
apologize.
All right?
And I went up there and I was sitting and I was like, okay, well,
I'm going to
it's
give you an
done.
option, all right? You go up there, you can sit.
Okay.
I'm going to be up, it's going to be on camera, all right? I'll be watching. If I get any hint, any slight hint that there's going to be a problem, you will be out of here. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right.
Although he allowed him back into the courtroom to watch the proceedings, his rude tone needed to be addressed. However, getting held accountable for anything just sets this tyrant off.
Are you not used to talking to people?
Oh, I'm used to talking to people.
I'm not.
I've been here for over 20 years, man. I know about talking to
Did I
people.
cuss at you?
Huh?
Did I cuss
Did
at
I
you?
cuss at you?
You just said the F word.
Or you want to start, the way I talk, then you can just leave. If you're going to have a problem with the way I talk, then you can just leave.
Am I being unreasonable here?
Gentlemen, I want him out of here.
Am I
Okay.
being unreasonable? Come
Okay.
on.
Yeah, like we said, you got your ID? Brett, you got his ID?
I get it back to him.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to have to escort you out, but you got to go, man. Okay?
We'll get your lieutenant, or where can I go?
My lieutenant?
Chief, whoever it is. I did nothing wrong.
Okay.
I was in here just looking around, which is
Yeah,
public
like-
property. I can do.
Well, this is my sergeant. You want to talk to him? You can talk to
I'm
him.
the supervisor on the table.
Okay, and I never got an attitude with him. You've seen the way he's acting with me. I was not rude.
Shockingly, and Instead of upholding the law, the officers also followed Deputy Crone's lead and asked the auditor to leave the building.
I can go up there and watch court, and I can sit there and be quiet, and that's what I was doing.
But as head of security for the building here, if he thinks the actions are suspicious, he wants to leave. Listen to me.
Go ahead.
If he thinks the actions are suspicious, he wants to leave, and you don't have a legitimate purpose other than to watch, I'm going to ask you to leave. That being said, if you do wish to file a complaint, there are options for that. It would be
where's the suspicion? Can you show me what is suspicious on a piece of paper?
I've already explained to you why it's suspicious. Okay. You come into a government building and you walk through
public
It's still a
property.
government building.
But it's still public property.
It's still a government building. Okay. You go through a security checkpoint and get in everything. Okay. And you start going through offices where we have attorneys, important paperwork, lawyers, everything like that here in this building.
It is concerning to see how much authority Crone seems to think that he has. He has never been held accountable, and it's time that someone takes action and files a complaint.
What is, let's go to public property, right on the sidewalk, because I want to talk to you guys more. What is his fucking problem? And now I'm going to use my freedom of speech here, because come on, guys.
Okay.
We know that I can go in there and look. I'm from Minot. I'm not from Williston, so there's nothing, suspicious about me walking through. I even asked the lady, what's the difference between municipal and district? And I asked him, hey, is there any court today? In her office, and he told me no.
Yeah.
If he said, yeah, there's court on the third floor, okay, then I'm going to go to court on the third floor and sit there and watch like I was doing.
I mean, there's no city court today. Maybe that's kind of the side of that. But either way, I understand. Yes, you can do court. But I just want you to see my point when I say this is suspicious activity, okay? It's unusual. We don't have that usually.
Of course you don't.
Yeah, so that's why we're checking on it.
Yes, of course.
Derek had been respectful throughout the altercation, but seeing how things turned out for him, he had every reason to hurl profanities. It is really tough to handle a tyrant like Crone when they violate your rights.
You see, he just said, come on, guys, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Right.
So now I'm going to go get my camera and I'm going to sit here on public property, which we know I can do,
Right.
and record in there. Because this is public property. So if he gets an attitude with it, let's be real here.
Right.
It is public property.
Yeah, this is public.
This is public property.
Right.
I was doing nothing. Like, this is my problem, right, guys? You ran my ID. I've never done anything wrong. I've never stolen, never done nothing. And when he treats me like I don't want to use the cuss words. Excuse me, a criminal. Come on, what is that? And I understand. Hey, I understand. It's also suspicious for somebody to walk around on a public street and record your house. But there's
Right.
nothing against the law to do that.
Now, it is a shame that this auditor seems to know more about the law than someone who has been in the job for over 20 years. Although the officers seem to agree with him on most things, they did not dare say a word against their senior.
If you're not I can't go into your yard and record into your window when you're naked. We know the law, the camera law.
Right.
But
Now, that being said, if your actions do arrest or annoy, that can be disorderly conduct.
yeah,
There are laws
but
that can cover
it's
that.
yeah, and it's all
Either way.
disorderly. Yeah, and if you're just sitting there,
I'm going to move to this point for you, okay, my man? Because, like, I understand where you're coming from. I really do.
I almost want to cry here. I was at Walmart in Minot, right? They were like, give me your ID. I said, no, or not my ID, but let me see your receipt. I said, no, I paid for my stuff. They're like, no, you didn't, you stole. Well, we're going to call the police. Okay. Like you said, you want my ID, I have no problem giving it to you. I don't know if it's going to, like, open up some can of worms where I can't go on a flight. I don't know. I've only heard, but I don't know.
Just take
Yeah.
history.
But you know what I'm getting at.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, the cop's going to come. He's not going to give me a problem. Dude, the cop comes and totally treats me like a asshole. Like, oh, they know you stole. And for me, it's like, oh, you know, and I know you guys are just doing your job, but it didn't help. And I'm a
Right.
dude that's never broke a law.
I can't speak for my PD. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Derek continued his painful rant, and he was rightfully pissed off at the deputy's behavior. It's reckless officers like this who burden their cities with costly lawsuits.
Right.
To be treated like him, and I'm not going to go, oh, well, let me go and file a claim. What's that going to do? At the end of the day, whatever. That's my view on it now.
Yeah.
And when you say, and I hate when people go, oh, I know how you feel. You do not know how I feel. You do not know how I feel. I don't know how you feel. I don't know how you feel. You deal with criminals all day. You deal with some innocent people. So it's like I don't want to go off on tangents, but you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't like, well, you, I'm not giving you, I wasn't like that. If I was like that, I could have been like, I couldn't see you guys going, okay, well, we're going to do this. I mean, you know, I don't know should I go talk to a lawyer right now and be like, hey, I was in the court down there, they told me there's no court, and then they had me escorted out for no reason. I'll sue him. I don't care.
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you can. It's.
You want to file a complaint?
we're supposed to protect. Why is it that I've had 2 interactions with police in Minot, but North Dakota, and it seems like the protect and serve thing goes right out the window. You're not supposed to protect and serve one person. I thought you're supposed to protect and serve 2.
It is great to see an auditor taking a stand for himself against these corrupt officials. Once again, the officer tries to lie about the encounter, but Derek immediately shuts him down and keeps delivering his fiery speech.
All right, like I said, I'm just gonna get my camera and set it up here and try to get a camera of him. And
Just don't one thing.
No, and I didn't talk to him.
No,
Like,
and listen to me. If conversation happens, just call the police department.
Yeah.
Don't get confrontational.
no, I didn't, and that's why I walked. I didn't walk. I walked
Right.
away.
And I know you didn't. I'm just telling. I just don't want you to.
I know.
Because
What? Yeah, and like I said, I know I said you were going to do a job. And I understand you say, oh, well, it's suspicious to this. Okay, it might be suspicious for people to talk to themselves. People that talk to themselves think it's just fine.
Yep.
I understand you're just doing your job.
Yep. We're just like I said. We don't know what you were
Just
doing.
checking
at
on
first,
you.
Yep.
And now we know.
Yep, and hey, for him to go, oh, well, we want you, dude, he's not going to sit and treat me like I don't want to cuss, but I know it's my right to do so. He's not going to treat me like a f***ing asshole and expect me just to sit there and take it from him. I'm an adult. He is not my dad. I'm not his kid. If I'm his kid, he can talk to me like that.
Right.
He is not going to treat me like that, and it's not fine. It's not okay. He was out of line. I was not out of line. I have a hard time with, like, if somebody's yelling at me with being quiet, and that's why I couldn't.
Yeah, like we can tell you're frustrated right now. We totally
I didn't do
understand.
anything. I just went in there to watch the court, which I can do by law.
Shortly after, the auditor left the courthouse, but only to file a lawsuit against the officers and Deputy Crone. He has since hired a lawyer, and the lawsuit is underway. Well, this deputy made a joke out of himself, but this next cop was rightfully punished and sentenced in court.
As sentenced for count 1, the court commits you to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 270 months. That's 270.
Police officer Derek Chauvin was arrested and charged with the murder of George Floyd, an incident that sparked worldwide protests and riots. During the trial, another officer who had previously pulled over Floyd was called to testify.
You were the officer who approached the passenger side of the vehicle. You approached George Floyd on May 6th of 2019, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you had your gun drawn when you approached Mr. Floyd, isn't that right?
Yes, I pulled it, yes.
And when you approached Mr. Floyd, he said, "Don't shoot me, man, I don't want to get shot," right?
Something like that, yes.
You told him to undo his seatbelt, correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
And he did that, right?
Yes, he did.
And then you said, "Put your hands where I can see them," correct?
Yes.
And then he put his hands in the air?
Yes,
And then you told him to put his hands on the dash, is that right?
that's correct.
And that was when you grabbed his hand and forcibly put it on the dashboard of the vehicle, correct?
Fallen, yes.
And you had your gun drawn the whole time you were giving commands, right?
Once I started ordering him and he refused to show me his hands, yes, it escalated where I pulled my gun, yes, ma'am.
And he was awake, correct?
What's that, ma'am?
Mr. Floyd was awake. Was he awake during this incident?
Yes.
While you were interacting with Mr. Floyd, he didn't collapse on the ground, correct?
Wait a minute, what was the question? Can you speak up a little louder, ma'am?
While you were interacting with Mr. Floyd, he didn't collapse on the ground, correct?
No, he did not.
Well, the answer is stricken. The objection is sustained.
You were asked some questions about what the other officers were doing, correct?
That's correct.
Your attention was focused on Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes, it was.
And Mr. Floyd didn't drop dead while you were interacting with him, correct?
No.
The officer did not have much to say. Finally, after a long trial, the judge was ready to announce Chauvin's sentence. But first, he had a message for everyone in the courtroom.
I've read all the impact statements that were submitted earlier and listened carefully to all the input here today. And it is truly appreciated that you took the time to stay with this case and to provide me with input. I have reviewed the pre-sentence investigation and carefully considered all the facts of the case and the law, but my comments are actually going to be very brief because most of it's going to be in writing. I have a 22-page memorandum that is going to be attached to the sentencing order. And why am I doing it in writing? To emphasize the fact that determining the appropriate sentence in any case, and in this case, is a legal analysis. It's applying the rule of law to the facts of an individual and specific case. And that is why, as opposed to trying to being profound here on the record, I prefer that you read the legal analysis that explains how I determined the sentence in this case.
The judge assured everyone that the sentence is not based on any pressure or opinion from the public and was strictly according to the law.
It has been painful throughout Hennepin County, throughout the state of Minnesota, and even the country. But most importantly, we need to recognize the pain of the Floyd family. I'm not going to attempt to be profound or clever because it's not the appropriate time. I'm not basing my sentence also on public opinion. I'm not basing it on any attempt to send any messages. A trial court judge, the job of a trial court judge is to apply the law to specific facts and to deal with individual cases.
Finally, the judge laid the sentence, which ensured that the tyrant officer would never be able to see a day out of prison.
Mr. Chauvin, as to count 1, based on the verdict of the jury finding you guilty of unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony under Minnesota Statute 609.19 subdivision 2 paren 1, it is the judgment of the court that you now stand convicted of that offense. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute section 609.04, counts 2 and 3 will remain unadjudicated as they are lesser offenses of count 1. As sentence for count 1, the court commits you to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 270 months. That's 270. That is a 10-year addition to the presumptive sentence of 150 months. This is based on your abuse of a position of trust and authority, and also the particular cruelty shown to George Floyd. You are granted credit for 199 days already served. Pay the mandatory surcharge of $78 to be paid from prison wages. You are prohibited from possessing firearms, ammunition, or explosives for the remainder of your life. Provide a DNA sample as required by law. Register as a predatory offender as required by law. And then you will receive a copy of the order and also the attached memorandum explaining the court's analysis.
If this needs to be said, we just ask that it be executed forthwith.
Defendant is remanded to the custody of the sheriff to be transported back to the DOC or whichever custody is currently holding him. Anything from the defense? No, Your Honor. All right. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Moving on, the cop murdered his wife and was eventually sentenced to life.
It's clear to me that you're a remorseless killer. You strangled your wife, you murdered her.
Cops sometimes break the very laws they are sworn to protect, thinking that they will get away with it. But sometimes, karma catches up and they face justice in court. Today we'll be looking at cases where corrupt officers got swift karma in the courtroom.
And he used his badge, and he used his position to satisfy his own desires. He is a cop who turned into a killer.
Starting off with ex-officer Daniel Howard, who was convicted for his wife for 2 years. Daniel claimed it was a suicide, but finally, after an investigation, he was found guilty and brought to trial.
Count 1 is the defendant Daniel C. Howard guilty or not guilty of domestic battery? Guilty. Count 2 is the defendant Daniel C. Howard guilty or not guilty of murder in the first degree? Not guilty. Is the defendant Daniel Howard guilty or not guilty of second-degree murder? Guilty.
Counsel, I'm proposing a sentencing date of May 23rd at 1:30 p.m. That's available. I will order a PSI or a pre-sentence investigation. Mr. Howard, I'll have you talk with your attorney about that. You have the right to participate or not participate in that. You continue to have the right to remain silent. Mr. Howard is remanded into custody. I'll see everyone back May 23rd at 1:30 for sentencing. We will be in recess.
Daniel mercilessly strangled Kendi out of jealousy. Kendi's daughter delivered an emotional statement in the courtroom, leaving a lasting impact.
I struggle with guilt and I struggle with not knowing. I wish I could have convinced her to stay with me instead of going home that night. The fear on her face and in her voice when she told me about how she woke up with him standing over her will never leave me. Nothing will fill the hole he has created. Nothing can fix or undo what he has done. But her name can be free. The thought that he can no longer have control over her name, her memory, and her spirit gives me a sense of peace.
Despite all the proof being against him, Daniel continued to plead innocence, but the judge made sure to take him to the cleaners.
I'm not that monster, I assure you, that people are portraying me to be.
But what we know, beyond a reasonable doubt, is that you strangled your wife, you murdered her, and then you staged her body in the bathtub, shot her through the mouth, and tried to pass this off as a suicide. That's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. In horrible crimes like this, everybody wants to know why. And often we don't know why, and I can't get inside your brain, but the pretty clear evidence, I agree with the state, is that this was due to, jealousy, greed, pride, anger, revenge, some combination of that.
While committing a murder was evil enough, Howard even went on to portray it as a suicide, further proving just how big of a monster he is. It is tough to think that at some point he was a law enforcement officer.
You didn't just, when you killed Kendi, you didn't just kill your wife. You killed a mother, you killed a grandmother, you killed a sister, a daughter, a worker, somebody who brought a lot of life and light to those around her and those she touched. And you snuffed that out because of your own pride, greed, and anger. Despite your efforts at the time to appear emotional and sad and distraught, it's clear to me that you're a remorseless, and I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly at all because we don't like to think that anybody would be like that. The lack of remorse, the lack of caring, and just the callous disregard that you had for Kendi and how her death affected those around her. You had these same thoughts. You were talking about allowing people to live through your own self-control and restraint, understanding why people would kill their, quote, old ladies and go to prison. And so you're 58 years old. I don't see a lot of rehabilitation, sadly, in your future. Maybe, perhaps, but that's not a significant mitigating factor in sentencing you.
The disgusting criminal maintained a straight demeanor, showing no remorse for his actions, while the judge continued to grill him.
There is a severe punishment for your wife, and there's no sort of mitigation because the marriage is on the rocks, or the wife was unfaithful, or things like that. There's absolutely no justification here for your wife, and I think it's important that the sentence sends that message as well. I know beyond a reasonable doubt is that you strangled or asphyxiated your wife. You staged her to be found as if it were suicide. It's an outrageously egregious murder. And of course, all murder is, but this is particularly heinous in my view, having sat through the trial and seen all the evidence.
Soon after, the judge announced the sentence, and from the very beginning, it was clear what fate awaited this brutal individual.
The nature and gravity of the offense standing alone is sufficient to justify a fixed life sentence. And that is what I'm going to impose here. I think Kendi's family deserves to have that closure. The crime is so egregious that I don't think you should be released at any point in the future. And I don't impose that lightly. I have thought long and hard about this, considered all the evidence, considered aggravation and mitigation. There's just so little mitigation here. There's just really none.
The judge remained calm, measured, and compassionate throughout the proceeding. Finally, he read the sentence, providing a sense of justice and comfort to Kendi's family.
You find that a fixed life sentence is appropriate for the count of second degree. On the domestic violence charge, I'll impose 10-year sentence and run it concurrent. I didn't even speak about that. I mean, really, I'm not, I don't mean to give that charge short shrift. The jury found that you were violent and abusive to your wife as well. It's just that, frankly, the killing alone subsumes it all in my view. And so I'm running that, the domestic violence charge of 10 years will run concurrent with your life sentence.
Howard was sentenced to life with no possibility of parole. It is relieving to know that the troubled man would be spending the rest of his life behind bars. While this dirty cop was taken to the cleaners in the courtroom, this next cop did the unthinkable and was rightly sentenced.
And he used his badge and he used his position to satisfy his own desires. He is a cop who turned into
Former Doralville police officer Miles Bryant was accused of rape and murdering 16-year-old Susanna Morales. The disturbing case was tough to establish, but after 7 months after her mysterious death, the officer was charged and ultimately on trial.
He was supposed to serve and protect. Worked as a police officer for the City of Doralville Police Department. Somebody we should hold to a higher standard because of his role in enforcing the law. But he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he abused the law. And he used his badge and he used his position to satisfy his own sexual desires. He is a cop who turned into a killer. His victim, 16-year-old Susanna Morales. Susanna was in high school.
The 16-year-old was headed home when she was pulled over by this criminal cop. He kidnapped her and ended up murdering her. He then returned to his job in less than 24 hours after committing this heinous act, as Susanna's family kept searching for her.
And Susanna Morales, on the night of July 26, 2022, her precious life ended because of the defendant's desire to satisfy his own desires. 196 days of no information. 4,704 hours of absolutely no idea where their daughter was, where their sister was. 282,240 minutes. A man named Matthew Gilbert was driving down Highway 316 and pulled off on the side of Highway 316. He saw this trail that is right off the side of Highway 316. At that time, it was February, it was winter, there were no leaves on the trees, and it was pretty obvious like this. But in the summertime, you'll see that this area here is completely wooded.
Matthew Gilbert was off-roading when he discovered Susanna's remains. This crucial discovery set the stage for identifying and capturing the real suspect.
In the middle of the woods, on that day, Mr. Gilbert stumbled across human remains. And at that moment, he stopped. You'll hear from him. Still with the black nail polish she had painted on. She had hair that was dark on the top, blonde hair on the bottom. They found her hair still there. And then here, very importantly, that she was naked. Her body was left there in the woods. They found absolutely not one shred of any fiber, any clothing, any socks, any pants, any shirt, any undergarments.
Despite her body being found in the woods, there was no evidence that would link the to Officer Miles. But just a day later, things took a turn for the worse for the cop.
The first piece of evidence was found the next day, February 7th of 2023. When the Gwinnett County Police Department, which you'll hear is that night, they found her body very late in the day. And it became dark very quickly in February. So they secured the scene, they collected what they could, left police officers there to secure the scene, came back the next morning to continue. They located this. This is a Glock 19 9mm handgun, and underneath the barrel is an attached flashlight on this weapon. The gun was near this girl's body, and so they wanted to know who it belonged to. And they found it was registered to the defendant, Miles Bryant. So they began to do a little more looking. How could his gun end up out there? What they found, and what you'll hear, is that the following morning after she went missing, July 27th of 2022, the defendant called the Gwinnett County Police Department to report that gun stolen. He claimed
Miles's weapon was found at the crime scene, providing undeniable proof of his involvement in the horrific crime. The prosecutor relentlessly grilled him, emphasizing the cruelty and disgrace of his action.
That less than 24 hours after the defendant kidnapped and murdered Susana Morales, he was back on shift, working as a Doraville Police Department officer. Went into a quick coincidence that his phones are there at the scene with her, that his gun is found at the scene. This is what you're going to hear from his own mouth. And then you're going to hear that Detective Carter asked him repeatedly, was it an accident? Did she fall and hit her head? No. I don't have anything to do with this. She didn't. Was it an overdose? Did she take something? No. It wasn't any of those things. It wasn't any accident. It wasn't anything. That's what you're going to hear from his own mouth. To come back and find the defendant guilty of malice murder, guilty of felony murder, guilty of kidnapping, guilty of criminal attempt to commit rape, and guilty of false report of crime.
Well, as the trial progressed, things were about to go from bad to worse, as the prosecutor interrogated an inmate who was with the defendant in prison, and what he revealed will leave you truly shocked.
Did you get to know him?
I wouldn't say I got to know him, but I mean, I talked to him.
Okay. How regularly would you talk to him?
Every day.
And before we get into the stuff that we're going to talk about, just generally, what kind of stuff would y'all talk about?
Anything, sports, what we did on the street, what we're going to do whenever we get out, if we get out.
What conversation did you have with him about some of the details of what was contained in the discovery?
I don't think I'm not going to get charged for this. They ain't got nothing against me. There's no. It says right here, plain. He says it says right here, plain. There's no blood, no nothing. They can't. They ain't got nothing against me.
So did he indicate to you that he was not going to be linked to the young girl's body because there was no blood or semen on her?
Yes.
Is that what he said?
He said there's no way this case can be put on me. It doesn't show that I was anywhere around her. It doesn't show no blood, no semen, no nothing.
At this point, Brian seems guilty as hell, and the inmate was about to expose this nasty criminal even more.
There was a conversation brought up one time. He said, someone could get the death penalty for something like this. I said, no, you gotta do something more brutal than that. And he said, so far they only got me charged with this one. He said, so far I'm only charged with one.
After plenty of hearings, the jury finally reached its verdict, and you will be satisfied that justice was served.
State of Georgia versus Miles Bryant. Indictment number 24B00156-4. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, found the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 3, kidnapping. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 4, criminal attempt to commit rape. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. Count 5, false report of a crime. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Signed June 12th, 2024 by the foreperson. Anything from the state or the defense?
Your Honor, nothing on behalf of the state.
All right, we would ask that the jury be polled, please, ma'am.
Okay.
The ex-police officer was found guilty of every charge against him instead of just rape. That due to lack of evidence, as the body was found 7 months later. It is even difficult to comprehend how a law enforcement officer would even do something like this.
Mr. Bryant, you now have been convicted of 3 felonies. I want to inform you, you have a right to seek post-judgment relief from your felony convictions by either filing a direct appeal to a higher appellate court or to file a motion for a new trial. You have 30 days from the date I sign and file your sentence with the clerk of court to file a motion for new trial to any and all of the felony charges. Ms. Drake, are you going to file a motion for new trial?
Yes, ma'am, and I did discuss that with my client about that process.
Okay. You also have 4 years from the date of your sentence, from the date your sentence is final, to file a habeas corpus petition on the felonies. I'm going to appoint you an appellate lawyer to handle your case.
Susanna's family must have felt some relief after the jury's verdict. Just days later, the judge called the suspect back for sentencing, delivering yet another powerful and just decision.
Mr. Bryant, do you want to say anything?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to say anything?
Yes,
Go ahead.
No, you can speak from there.
I just want to apologize to everybody and to the victim's family. Sorry, that's it.
That's it. Okay. Mr. Bryant, on count 1, malice, I sentence you to life without the possibility of parole. Count 2 and count 3, I believe, vacate as operation of law. Count 5, I sentence you to 12 months, which is the maximum I can, consecutive to your life without the possibility of parole. Thank you. You may go with the deputies.
Bryant rightfully got life in prison, and moments after this, Susanna's family was allowed to have some last words in the courtroom.
Susanna was my little sister. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for working on this case. All we ever wanted was justice for what happened to her. So I want to thank her for that. I'm sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry about.
I just ask that he receives the maximum sentence because no family, no mother, no father, no one deserves to go through this. And no one deserves to go through what he went through all these years. These 2 years, I'm sorry.
Jasmine, I'm so sorry you lost your sister. I'm so sorry. You lost your sister.
It was heartbreaking to witness as Susanna's sister broke down in tears. The judge showed remarkable compassion, listening to her with full attention, a rare and touching moment in the courtroom.
I just wanted to let you know what our family went through. Seeing my mom devastated every single day, not knowing what could happen to my sister was very, very disappointing, devastating. Seeing my mom not eat, not be able to sleep. Seeing my mom not wanting to cover herself, thinking that she could be somewhere lost, thinking the worst as the days pass. It's very, very hard not to think anything positive.
The family endured immense pain and trauma because of this predator, and while the verdict may bring some sense of justice, nothing can restore the happiness that was cruelly taken from them.
I had a different theory what could have happened to her. Maybe she got kidnapped. We didn't know anything. Every day was a new series in our mind, like a movie going through our heads. What was happening? What was she going through? Is she being held? Is she being forced to do something? I couldn't even have intimacy with my husband, thinking that she could have been being raped during that time. Seeing my mom lose weight that she never lost over years. She lost weight over 25 pounds during not knowing.
Bryant was sentenced to life, and if you think this cop was the worst, this next one took things up a notch.
I feel like I'm being very much bullied into doing something that's not right. And I want this court to know that Todd Pate holds himself responsible for everything that he did.
Police officers often face the heat of justice in courtrooms, and today we will be looking at some of the best moments when corrupt cops were held accountable by some honest judges. We begin with former Breckenridge County Sheriff Todd Pate, who is far from a typical defendant. He is facing charges of assault, second offense DUI, criminal mischief, and leaving the scene of an accident.
This time is it your desire to change your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Do I have to answer that yes or no, or can I make somewhat of a statement that's
That is a yes or no answer, sir.
Will I have the opportunity to say anything further?
If it is your intention to change your plea from not guilty to guilty, certainly you'll have an opportunity to make any statement. But if it is not your intent to enter a guilty plea at this time, then I'm going to set your case for jury trial, and you're going to stop wasting my time and everybody else's time this afternoon.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to waste your time.
Then is it your intention to enter a guilty plea at this time or not, sir?
No. Why am I wasting your time?
4 people were hurt in an accident that Todd allegedly caused while driving a car. Shockingly, he fled the scene. When arrested, his blood alcohol was nearly twice the legal limit.
Why am I wasting your time?
Mr. Chambers, what is the Commonwealth's position at this time, sir?
Your Honor, we would move to revoke the defendant's bond at this time.
Let's get back on the record and see if we can sort this out. At this point in time, what is Mr. Pate's decision with respect to his guilty pleas?
So I believe I'll just let him answer that question if it pleases the court.
All right. So, Mr. Pate?
Can I say a few things, or?
I need to understand what it is that we're doing here today, Mr. Pate.
Yes, I had every intention of coming in here today and entering a guilty plea. It's difficult for me to enter a guilty plea for a lot of reasons, and I don't want this court to think that I am trying to minimize any responsibility that I had in this situation that occurred.
The controversy deepened as he disputes the assault charge, thinking it was added solely because of his role as a sheriff and his decision to reject a plea deal offered by the prosecutor.
Like I'm being very much bullied into doing something that's not right, and I want this court to know that Todd Pate holds himself responsible for everything that he did. It's hard for me to lay down and plead to felony charges that don't apply.
Is it your intention today to enter this guilty plea?
And if I could address...
This is either a yes or no. Are you going to enter your plea or not?
I guess everybody thinks it's funny.
With credit for time previously served, he eventually entered a guilty plea and accepted a sentence of 75 days in county jail. Now this case was intense, but the next courtroom showdown will leave you questioning everything.
We've got a complaint of you out here holding up profanities. Okay. I'm not going to tell you again.
You have your ID on you? I don't have my your hands right here.
In December of 2018, a YouTuber named Otto the Watchdog held several signs while standing on public land. As cars drove by, many waved and honked in support. What started as a peaceful demonstration was about to take a dramatic turn.
Sheriff's Office dispatch.
Hi, there's some people out here at Interstate 30 and South Elm that have some very offensive signs.
Officer Johnny Clark led the Royce City Police Department's response to Otto's location, as officers from the department were dispatched to the scene.
Where's Johnny with the other one? Should be right over here. Thank you. Yes. Some guy holding up a sign that says shit is f***ed up and stuff or something.
Still in office.
How are you?
Well, I was doing just fine until just a minute ago. I've already heard you say a cuss word once, so...
What do your other signs say, sir? Sir, what do your other signs say?
What am I doing?
Okay, can I see your other signs?
No, leave my seat away.
Sir, we've got a complaint of you out here holding up profanities.
Okay.
Okay, if you don't let me look at your sign, I'll take you in custody for disorderly conduct.
I'm not being disorderly.
Otto was soon approached by officers who confronted him about his sign. Sergeant Dial was clearly displeased with Otto's firm refusal to consent to search or seize his property despite their demands.
I'm not being disorderly.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you again. All right?
I don't consent to any searches or seizures.
Okay. This is offensive to people that are driving by. And families that are driving by. Yes, it's disorderly conduct.
What's the penal code?
It's disorderly conduct.
Can you read that to me?
It's disorderly conduct.
Okay.
You have your ID on you?
No.
Okay. Now you're filling the ID.
I don't have my ID.
The tension reached a boiling point when the senior officer angrily punched Otto's signs out of his hands. Everyone was shocked by the aggression, even Officer Clark.
Roll over. Since he's failing the ID, take him to jail for disorderly conduct.
When we're here answering a complaint and you refuse to identify yourself, that is a crime. When you're displaying these signs and people are calling because it's offensive to them, that is another crime. So yes, you have committed a crime. You committed two. You didn't warn me. We don't have to warn you. Ignorance of the law.
I asked you politely to see your signs and you said
I
no.
don't consent to any searches or seizures of my property or my person.
I'm not going to take you.
In a powerful act of passive resistance, Otto laid down on the ground, showing that the arrest was unlawful. His message was clear, that he wouldn't resist, but wouldn't comply either.
Is that your cell phone and tripod? If it's not, I'm going to leave it sitting here. If it is, I'm going to take it and put it up so somebody doesn't steal it. But if you want to act this way, I'll leave it sitting here and let somebody steal it.
Why would you do that?
Okay. We don't know whose stuff that is either.
I have a question. What am I being arrested for?
The officer just explained.
Now's not the time to ask questions. Oh, it is the time to ask questions. You know what? Nobody even asked me to identify. All he did is ask me if I had ID, and I don't have ID.
Let me explain something to you, young man. We're not holding court on the side of the road with you. Okay?
Well, you're arresting me.
We're not holding court with you.
I just want to know why I have handcuffs.
Any questions you have, you can ask the jail. You can ask the court. You gonna get up?
I can.
Okay. Roll back over and I'll help you up.
I'm not sure if I can do that either. I would like to see your supervisor right now before you assault me any further. I am being assaulted. I have not committed a crime.
When the officer threatened to leave Otto's camera at the scene for anybody to take, he then worsened the situation.
I have not committed a crime.
Get up.
I have not committed a crime. I can't get up. You're hurting me. You're hurting me.
Then get up.
I cannot get
then
up
get
like
up.
this. I can't get up like this.
They lift you up.
I'm trying to get up. Matt, please.
Get up.
Well, assist me up instead of trying to...
We're trying to help you up.
Lift you up. I'm trying to be an ass.
Yes, I've seen the game before. Roll up to your knees and they will assist you up.
Roll up to my knees. I'm a fat man.
Okay.
Help me to my knees.
We already have one.
Well, help me again.
Now they'll lift you straight up. On your feet. Stand up.
Okay, help me up. I have committed no crime. I have committed no crime whatsoever. Get my equipment.
That's not yours. Remember, I asked you earlier. Come on.
So you're going to leave my shit on the side of the road. Get my equipment. Get my equipment. You dude, I'm asking for you to give us. Hey, I've committed no crime.
Unlock your car,
No
please.
crime.
I want to turn this phone off. I ain't turning nothing off. I'm gonna leave it right like that, put it in evidence.
According to the Texas Penal Code, people are not required to identify themselves until they are under arrest, despite the officer's claims that Otto was held for failing to identify himself.
I asked him if it was his, he didn't want to talk. I heard it, though. Yeah. Okay. He knew where his car was. Somewhere up there. If I had to bet.
Still under arrest for failed ID.
I was under arrest, and then I ID'd, as the code says.
No, the code says when you're legally detained, you're required to ID yourself. You did not.
It specifically says arrested. I didn't do nothing.
What's your phone number?
I didn't do nothing.
In response to this injustice, Otto sued Officer Short and Sergeant Dial, claiming they had violated his First Amendment rights and engaged in malicious prosecution. Otto's attorney expertly undermined the sergeant's case throughout the deposition, leaving him completely vulnerable and unable to justify his conduct.
As I explained earlier, one, it was an officer safety issue because I don't know what the signs are made out of or what they were. They could be used as a weapon. And secondly, we were still investigating whether a crime had been committed, and he was unwilling to show us what the other two signs, or what the sign said, other than what we could see.
Did you believe that Mr. Knowles had an obligation to give you those signs?
What do you mean, an obligation?
Did you have the right to see those signs?
Well, it's part of our investigation.
Did Mr. Knowles have the right to refuse showing you the signs?
Anybody can refuse anything. Objection form.
Why did you hit the sign so hard?
Objection form.
Sergeant Dial should have a firm grasp of the law after 11 years on the police force, yet his ignorance was clearly evident throughout the deposition.
I don't know what your definition of hard and soft is, and that was 5 years ago.
How do you define hard and soft? You can use your own definition, please.
In regards to what?
The level of force that you applied to the signs.
I mean, I don't know how I would describe hitting a sign soft or hard.
Why didn't you use less force when touching the signs?
Objection. I didn't know I used too much force.
Could you have used less force when touching the signs?
Objection form. In regards to what? I mean, what was the amount of force that I used?
You said earlier that you conducted an investigation after you arrived on the scene that day with Knowles. What were the results of that investigation?
In regards to what?
In addition to violating Otto's rights under the 1st, 4th, and 14th Amendments, Sergeant Dial's utter lack of understanding about disorderly conduct laws was painfully clear.
Did you find anything during your investigation that caused you to arrest Knowles, that caused anyone to arrest Knowles?
Through our investigation, we determined that disorderly conduct had been committed.
How did disorderly conduct get committed?
Due to the verbiage that was on the signs, and we had received complaints.
His ignorance was a clear sign that he was completely unfit for the job.
If you received the same complaints and those signs had said something different, would Knowles have been arrested?
The same complaints in what? Because the complaint we had was, it was vulgar and offensive.
What I'm asking you is, if the complaints were the same, but the contents of the signs were different, would Knowles have been arrested?
Objection form.
What if the sign said Blue Lives Matter?
How is Blue Lives? There's nothing vulgar about Blue Lives Matter. There's no profanity in Blue Lives Matter.
Are you saying that if the sign said Blue Lives Matter, Knowles would not have been arrested?
I'm telling you that based on the complaints that we received that day, a guy telling me that he was offended by the profanity and vulgar that was being used in the signs.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sergeant Dial said the arrest was initiated because the sign hurt someone, although he could not name any laws that Otto had broken. It is clear he needs to read up on the Constitution before making any more decisions.
If the complaints were the same, but the sign said Blue Lives Matter, would Knowles have been arrested that day?
Objection, son. There's no vulgar or profanity in in the verb or term, the verbiage or term Blue Lives Matter.
Do you think anyone that says a bad word publicly should be arrested?
No.
Why not?
Did someone complain on them, or they just out there just throwing a fit? No complaints. I mean, there's several reasons why we would not arrest someone. I mean, if nobody finds it offensive, then disorderly conduct's not met.
So if the language on the signs had not offended someone, Knowles would have been arrested, or would he not have been arrested?
So you're telling me we didn't receive any calls and nobody complained to us? Would we have arrested Knowles that day?
Correct.
No, we wouldn't not have.
During the deposition, the lawyer took over the situation by interrogating Sergeant Dial incessantly. However, the true surprise was still to come.
What specifically did Clark say to you about Knowles' prior disorderly conduct?
He was explaining it to Knowles that as I'm walking up, he's explaining it to him that, look, I've already heard you out here cussing at people.
So he was talking to Knowles, not you?
That is correct.
Did any motorists complain about the prior alleged profanities that Knowles said before you arrived?
Well, the one gentleman told me about the signs, and regarding what the people on 911 called in about, I do not recall that.
If anyone complained about verbal language and you didn't hear any allegedly profane verbal language from Knowles at the scene?
I did not hear it, but I heard Clark explaining to Knowles that he has already witnessed it or observed it himself.
As he prepared to ask the last question, the attorney knew it would leave the officer completely speechless, and it did.
Do you know one word of profanity that Knowles said?
No, I do not.
And you are not aware of any person that was offended by what Knowles said?
No.
When the sergeant unintentionally acknowledged that the arrest was based only on the placard's content, he immediately exposed the constitutional rights infringement and dug his own grave.
Were you offended by the contents of his signs?
No.
Why did you think they were offensive?
The sergeant's errors mounted as the attorney focused on the First Amendment infringement, underscoring his total ignorance of the law.
So you would arrest somebody if a citizen complained about vulgarities?
Objection, phone. So a citizen made the police department or dispatch aware that they had used profanities and vulgarities and were offended. Would I arrest someone?
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Have you arrested more than 5 people in your career?
I believe that would be an accurate statement.
Have you observed more than 10 arrests in your career?
I'd probably say I have observed more than 10 arrests in my career.
It is startling that a 10-year police veteran was unaware of the First Amendment. This then calls into question the caliber of law enforcement training. What sort of personnel are we teaching to serve and defend?
Have you observed more than 25?
That I don't know.
Have you observed more than 30 arrests in your career?
I don't know.
Do you remember any specific details about your training regarding First Amendment rights?
No, I do not.
Are you saying that you don't remember one word from your training regarding First Amendment rights?
Objection. That is correct. We went over the elements of the Constitution, and I believe the First Amendment is part of the Constitution.
But specifically the First Amendment, you don't remember?
Correct.
Do you remember how long you spent studying constitutional rights?
No, I do not.
Have you had any training related to constitutional rights since you became an officer?
I do not recall.
It is baffling that someone in such a high-ranking position could exhibit such a glaring lack of knowledge. How can we trust officers with such critical authority when they don't even understand the basics of the Constitution?
What topics have you been trained on since you became an officer?
I don't recall all of them.
Name one.
Accident investigation.
Anything else?
I'm sure there's others.
Where did you receive the training regarding constitutional rights in 2007?
When I was in the police academy, is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to the training that you referred to, that you received in 2007 regarding First Amendment rights.
The Collin County College Police Academy.
And who trained you in constitutional rights?
Could not tell you.
Because you don't remember?
You're asking for the instructor's name? No, I do not remember the instructor's name.
This is the result of insufficient instruction on the First Amendment and fundamental rights.
Do you remember anything about the protections provided to citizens by the First Amendment?
No, I do not.
Are you aware that the First Amendment gives citizens what's known as the freedom of speech? Have you heard of the freedom of speech?
I have.
What do you think that means?
Interpretations are a dime a dozen, but basically someone can speak freely.
Following the deposition, the city was compelled to settle, and Otto was given $25,000.
First Amendment protect a person from being arrested because of what they say.
Objection form calls for legal conclusion.
Do I answer it?
Answer.
I think at times it may.
Has the police department provided you with any subsequent training on constitutional rights since you've been an active officer?
I do not recall.
Have you received any training, guidance, or instruction regarding First Amendment rights while you've been a police officer?
Objection form.
In the police academy, I know we went over the constitutional rights.
But anything since then?
I do not recall.
The sergeant was promoted to lieutenant and suffered no repercussions for his startling ignorance of the law. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Today we saw how corrupt cops were instantly owned in the courtroom, facing justice for their wrongdoing. It is a reminder that no one is above the law, not even those who are sworn to enforce it. The courtroom exposed their actions for what they were, and it is clear that accountability is crucial in maintaining trust in our law enforcement. If you agree, please support us by liking this video. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out how these evil parents were sent to jail with the help of their kid.
And if they don't, then it's their fault that the child is acting like us, which is what he's doing.